All right. I'm waiting for our good friend Rob Glenn to come in here. I'm getting started. I'm working around behind the scenes. I'm here. Fear not, my lovely ones. Studio mode because I don't need that currently. And I will stretch this. This keeps changing. And hi, happy Friday, a lot is going back to Japan this summer for a visit, or we shall see what we shall see, I guess. Texas, Paul, what's happening? Hype Train on Twitch. That's right. Don't forget those sexy and those liberals. Hold on one second. I'm getting a message. He's trying to get into the thing. I'm in video. Okay. I don't see you in there, but he's in probably. Hold on one second. This might be a thing. Hold on. Back up. Makeup. Okay. Excellent. Hello. I believe you can see me.
Yes.
And
I
hear
can
me.
see you.
I see audio coming back from you, but I'm not hearing it. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's my problem.
Video says
My
the audio works. Hello? Check, check. Check, check.
Now I'll be able to hear
Check,
you.
check. Hello?
There he is. All right, we can jump in very quickly then. Just give me a second to pop you into the screen, and hopefully it doesn't crash just with one guest. It's always something. And I'm very excited to hear us behind the scenes. So don't say anything untoward. It's good. Are you posing, or are you just reading?
Oh,
You had a magnificent pose for your come on camera, but I didn't do that right away. Okay.
I was looking at my other screen.
That's good. Hold on one second. I'm going to go to me solo and tell everybody that what's up, and then hi everybody, welcome to the show. Good morning, good day, good evening, and how you doing, and all that fun stuff. I'm going to race right to it. Our dear friend Rob Glenn is. Where is he? I lost my click there. There you go. Is waiting in the wings. And I want to bring him on right away. Rob, there you are. Look at you.
Hello.
Hi. So, Rob,
Hi.
everyone, Rob. A couple of things. Tara will be joining us in the second hour. Like, subscribe. Make sure you hit the like early because it helps us immensely. It gets us out into the algorithm. We are indeed tricking the machine today. And I think that's kind of crucial to this whole conversation. Now, as a brief introduction, I'll let Rob explain what he does business-wise and for a living, because he can do it more concisely than I could ever do it. But on a personal level, he's one of the few people I can nerd out with completely. You know, they always talk about how, like, guys need a bro they can cry in front of. Well, I can nerd in front of Rob that same way. You know what I mean? Like, complete and utter just guttural nerding without fear of judgment. Because on the one hand, Rob, you are, bless your heart, more tech savvy on a few of these things than I am, certainly. And I think because of that, you and I both have kind of a view of the practical aspects of the future tech that we're going to be talking about this morning, and why it's a necessary conversation. We discuss that kind of all the time. Whenever we're talking, that's where the conversation goes. So first of all, Rob, tell them about your business and what you do and kind of in general, and then we'll start in on this stuff because I have some video for you to watch and respond to, and then some other products and things that we'll kind of you can kind of delve into stuff live, and we'll talk about it. So yeah.
Sure. So I'm an industrial designer. That's the easiest starting point for what I do, but it's just a starting point.
Right.
An industrial designer is a combination of a artist. It's a field which is driven by art and design,
Right.
and it's like half that, and it's half, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, mechanical engineering. It's the creation or the design of products, physical products, and how those products are made.
Mm-hmm.
So at the core, that's what I do and what the business sort of started as, or it has always been. And
Right.
then that in the development of new products, it touches all kinds of things, from from manufacturing to the like visualizations. So I break the company into design, engineering, manufacturing, and visualization.
Mm-hmm.
And the first three are fairly straightforward. Visualization is the the it's like VFX. So like the technology you would use in games and in movie special effects, we use that to illustrate our ideas and to create product photography, animations, commercials, things like that.
Right.
All of that is to the point or to the goal of selling products, developing them for other companies, things like that.
Yeah. So, from and a lot of that happens inside a virtual setting, with the ultimate end in about half or so of the product, half of it being kind of virtual, like the systems where like you, for people at home, if you've ever gone to like the IKEA website and you're trying to find out if their stuff fits your space, and they give you like design your little room. Here's the layout of the room, and they make a blank wall in kind of a 3D space, and you can pop in pieces of their furniture and other stuff to see if it will fit in that space. Rob does those kind of things for companies, that kind of design, and like help the consumer find if their stuff fits or however. The breakdown of those things, and then ultimately the design of some physical products that go to that have to be either modified for design or or implementation or change in how they're manufactured or the manufacturing process. You spit out a part or a piece or a whole product, right? Mike,
Yes.
is
So
that
in my career, physical products, I've had my hand in design or engineering of probably 400 or 500 completely different things.
right? So in that is that juxtaposition, to me, is one of the most important aspects of sort of modern life in this regard, because what we're really talking about is we hear a lot about AI and how it's going to change the world and blah blah blah, but most of us, I feel like, think of it as something that's inside your computer, inside your phone, and doesn't touch the material world. It's sort of like social media versus actually going out to dinner with friends. There is a ginormous difference between social media and socializing. And until it gets to I've had the blessing, and I'm sure you have too, at some of these, even the sexy liberal shows in Chicago, for example, meeting people you've met online, in a bigger sense around a communal idea or something that you share, and expanding your local friend base based on something that happened online. Digitally, that's where you guys met. Physically, though, is where it matters. Where the rubber hits the road is the part where life changes, right? This is the difference between
Mm-hmm.
a person that might read your text, your tweet in the middle of the night and respond to it, versus the person you could call and have them come over, right? It's a huge leap for most people. And when it comes to I feel like AI is still, for a lot of people, in this pocket, right? It's in this, like, out until it reaches my phone in a way that I can't avoid it. And partly it's there with Siri and Alexa and all those variant things, but not quite, right? It's two steps away from it being totally functional. It can answer quick questions. It might be wrong some of the time, but it can't revise your travel plans for you, for example. It can look stuff up, but it can't implement. Now we're getting to the implementation part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, what's, let me, I'll go with this sort of anecdote that you and I were talking about the other day, about you needing to do some coding for something you were working on that would have probably required, at least 3 years ago, I mean 10 years ago, it would have required 20 people and a huge budget. And it would at least require 3 people or 5 people to do it right now, as far as a coding patch, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think what you're trying to speak to is like what where is it touching our lives? How are we using it now? How do
Mm-hmm.
people perceive how we're using technology?
Right.
And then how is it actually being used? Maybe I think is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Um, so AI is such a big concept for most people,
Right.
and a lot of people jump straight to Terminator robots coming to take over the
Right.
world. When really AI currently in the form of an LLM or large language model
Mm-hmm.
is it's the current iteration of how we access a whole lot of data.
Right.
Um, and so previous to LLMs, it was there was some in the middle, but it's the big maybe starting point would be Google trying to put the entire internet into their database. It's so huge. How do you access the information? How do you ask it questions? Things
Mm-hmm.
like that. So LLMs are effectively a really fast way to access that information.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that it does it is through training, training on the data,
Right.
and then becoming sort of like a chatbot, if you will, that you can ask it questions, or you can communicate it with your language,
Yeah.
as opposed to with code or something like that, and it will answer you in your language.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really just an interface
Right.
to
That's to
getting
my
to that
point, which
information.
is I have first of all, I have been arguing for a long time. I had this argument online a long time ago with Elon Musk before he became a psychotic. That we should refer to AI as SI, synthetic intelligence, AGI, which is what they're calling it. You know, artificial general intelligence, where you can talk to it like a friend, and it's got a general ability to interact like an assistant or something like that. That's what they're talking about, and have a feeling about it, or have an intuition, a digital intuition based on your
Right.
habits and other stuff, which is not that far off. Again, the Turing test is far too low a standard, I think, personally, because look at any smart person talking to a person who has a puppet on their lap, and they will start talking to the puppet very quickly. That's the Turing test for puppets, and we all fail it immediately. We all, if Elmo's there and you can see the dude's hand right up inside it, but you don't care. You go, "Hi, Elmo," because you're an idiot. That's how humans interact with this stuff, and AI will be no different. My belief is that it should be synthetic intelligence, because you've created it, instead of artificial, which is fake, or pretend
Yeah.
intelligence, something. It's just a bad descriptive. So AGI, artificial general intelligence, is SI, as far as I'm so. But the other part is that AI is just UI right now. The way we look at
Yeah.
AI, and a UI, in case you don't know at home, is a user interface. That's your desktop, instead of having to program the zeros and ones, right? This is AI is just another UI. It's just way faster in its advance than any other stage in user interface, right?
Hmm. So yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
like I don't even like using intelligence at all. Like
Right.
it's just,
So,
it's just a thing. It's essentially a way of accessing information, um, like you would Google. Like I go back
mm-hmm.
to that. And when you say like how we think about it, we are anthropomorphizing it. Like we are making it human.
Totally.
So but it's not. It seems like it is because it's one of the first things that can truly answer you the way you want to be answered. Like
Right.
that's really cool. That's what's really cool about it. It'll fake you out
Oh, I'm gonna
really fast.
right. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you a clip. Something I just saw this morning, and I don't know that you've seen, because I think it just came out yesterday, even. That like is exactly that. Maybe
Yeah.
AI is really just augmented interface, ultimately. That it
Yeah. I
is.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's trained. It can't be its own thing.
No.
It is us. Like it was trained on our writing and our videos and our
Hmm.
stuff. So it is effectively emulating us.
Yeah.
So it's just a mirror. Sometimes I call it a mirror. Like it's hard to understand it in that way, but all of these things are all of these like conversations are really wrapped around like how do you think about it, and it's really
Right.
important that we think about it in the right structure for all kinds of reasons, like for policy, for how we use it, for how
Right.
it makes us feel, like all those
Whether it's
things.
useful or not, because you can be
Right.
intimidated by it. I think that's where most people are. Most people are intimidated or frustrated. These are the two channels
Yeah.
you go into. Either Jesus Christ, it's such a huge thing, and if I start using it, I don't even know where it goes, and I don't know that. And then the frustrated is you try it on a like the early scale, the early attempts on stuff, and it doesn't quite work because of the the limitations put on intentionally, and it's not a stupid thing by regulators and government and other stuff to make sure it doesn't get out of hand. That those limitations are, go, well, it's not really useful for me yet until it has access to the internet, until it has access to my bank card and all that kind of stuff, which makes me very nervous. And I don't feel like it's gonna help me. I'm always the step. It's just more, it's gonna give me more work to do because
Right.
I.
So we normally do this in our conversations, but let me get back to your original question now,
Yes, thank you.
which was or what your original ask of me,
All
which
right.
was so we this is a very small thing inside of everything we do, but we needed to develop a very quick little tool, software based tool,
Right.
and and it was one of our first things that we just purely used ChatGPT for.
Yeah.
And the way I try to describe it is, you're still doing research. You're still asking something a question to get a response,
Right.
which you would anyway. So how do I get my computer to do this thing, right? Um, and it and before large language models, you know, a year ago,
Hmm. Yeah.
6 months
That's the
ago,
fucked up part.
we
That's exactly
right
it.
you go to Google and you try to look for it. And Google actually has done a really good job of kind of switching the way it receives it actually realized that people were asking it questions
Yeah.
a few years back, and it started to like receive those questions and give answers. A lot of people complain about why it does that or how it does that. Anyway, in order to get the answer that you needed,
Hmm.
you had to ask it the right question. You had to use the right words, and that's very sort of
Right.
uh,
The
that's
very nature
how
of coding.
databases work.
Yeah.
If you're searching, uh, if you're searching for something inside of the library, like you need to know what the name of it is. You can't generally ask a question like. So anyway,
Yeah.
LLMs allow for you to sort of more generally define what you're trying to get, and it will start to more focus the answers as you go do it, as opposed to just shooting in the dark and
Right.
maybe you'll get an answer. So what's interesting, like LLMs are really good for coding because the internet is full of all kinds of people asking questions and getting answers for code.
Hmm.
And that's really where it comes from. Like if you search how do I write an array in JavaScript on Google, you'll get hundreds of answers from
Right.
people in forums asking that question and getting that answer. So that's why it's so good, because
Right.
that's
It's
the
also
data
got a
that it learned
very
from.
narrowly defined set of parameters. It's why
Right.
it's way better at that. If you were going to start your own software company right now, it is the greatest time ever to do that because you could literally just, we always have this idea, the like idea man, Silicon Valley billionaire, or whatever, Steve Jobs is his way through stuff and started in programming, so has a fundamental knowledge of it, may be involved in the meeting part of it, but at a certain point they transition into, I need this done like this. And then his team makes it. They do a review. You go, I like that part. I don't like that part. They go back and do the stuff. And only companies that large, right? Only that,
Right.
like, stuff that huge, the companies that huge could actually do that, because none of us, on a startup, you don't have a team that size. You might have a team of like 3 guys, but they're going to be gacked out on Jolt Cola, trying to, like, you'd have to hire the best of the best of the best, because you've only got 3 of them versus 35 moderately good programmers that can work together,
Right.
right? Now, and it's all a specific language. There's no, somebody has an accent and it throws the whole thing off, like in speech. This, code is code is code, right?
Right. So in that case, you can prototype really quickly inside of an LLM. You still
Mm-hmm.
can't do like really good large code bases, um, but you can prototype very quickly, and that's enough to get you as a small business, a startup. In this case, in your example,
Yeah,
you can you can get yourself to something that looks like what you want it to do quite quickly.
right. And
Um,
now they've got, what is it? And I want to say it's called Envina, and there was another one that just came out, which is like your personal AI coding assistant, right?
yeah, there's
And
like tons of those.
yeah, but one of them's backed by Microsoft, and the other one was backed by Google, I want to say, and that's where all their money is doing, right? Um, and oh, thanks very much, TOH Show Live, for being appreciative of the fact that I'm able to do multiple streams at once. Believe me, Rob Glenn has been with me through this struggle,
Yeah.
and the struggle is
If
real.
anybody doesn't know, like when Hal has a tech problem and he
Yeah,
can't solve it, I'm the guy
yeah,
that gets called.
absolutely. And he's like, yes, okay, let's look through this.
And
And
what's awesome, Hal, is like if I put you in a car that can go 100 miles an hour, you're going to go 200 miles an hour and pull a trailer behind it.
right, yeah,
So I
exactly.
don't even know no idea what you got going on.
Little bit of backstory to that effect, real quick, and then I want to show you this video that I saw this morning. So early on, I'm the one who convinced Marianne Williamson to get Marianne.com, and I got HalSparks.com in 1993. When I was one of these people going, oh my god, I could build a website with my name, and if I have a acting demo, I don't have to send around video cassettes anymore. I could post the video on the site, and then agents and stuff could look at my videos, and everybody was like, you are a fucking lunatic. And I was like, I'm named after a computer. I have birthright to be this nerdy, right? So, um long story short, I started editing on a Media 100 system in an old Mac, which was the top of the line available tech. My roommate had it, and I debugged it and kept it running. Just kept it fucking going so that he could use it for graphics, because he directed game shows and stuff, and they always needed new graphics, and that's what they were using it for. So I'm
Yeah.
chipping away, and I start editing a pilot for my sketch comedy group. Here Comes the Neighborhood, and I was trying to put together a half-hour pilot, and I knew I was going to have to offload, because I could only do 5-minute clips max, was where I was running aground. I was like, at 5 minutes, the audio and the video would start to drift. Like it would just be off. There was nothing I could do to solve it at 5 minutes, and it was driving me fucking crazy. So I get into this forum for like the Apple, for Final Cut, effectively their version of it, or it was actually Adobe Premiere. It was back in the Adobe Premiere days. It was Adobe Premiere, and I get into the forum in there, and nobody knows how to get it. They're like, we can't solve. We're trying to figure it out. So I literally call up the tech people at there. I got an office number for the programmers there, and I went, look, okay, I'm using this, and this, and I'm getting 5 minutes of video, and then it starts to drift. Is there anything I can do as far as a faster cable? Is there something to get it to what? And they went, 5 minutes? We can't get past 3. What the fuck are you doing? That's a true story. It's a true
We
story.
yeah, we buy, so we run a small machine shop.
Yeah,
And when you buy a machine tool, it's a large machine, and it's the envelope. Like, how big is the thing you can make in the envelope? And my
right.
joke in the company, like with all our employees, is no matter what size we get, the first project will be 1 inch bigger.
Totally. It,
It
they're
just,
going to order
that's the way it
something
works.
outside the realm of possibility always. In that, by the way, I was thanked in the Adobe Premiere manuals from that point forward in the really thick script of like thanks and thanks and thanks. And the Apple dog cow, which you can still with a code in Final Cut bring up, and the little dog cow will walk across the screen. It's a little error slash Easter egg they put in there. It has 4 or 5 quotes from me in
Oh,
it
that's
that it
hilarious.
trails behind, amongst other people, other designers who worked on it. Occasionally, you will see a quote from Hal Sparks from that time
Yeah,
behind
you're
the dog
everywhere,
cow.
man.
It's yeah, it's so. I'm serious. It's like a totally unknown part of the world that I came up in. But I've always been kind of DIY about this, and always at the cutting edge of it. So I'm not afraid of AI, and I'm very excited about the concept. I want to show you a piece of video. Now, there's a couple of things like this, like the rabbit and other things that are supposed to be AI you can carry around with you. Little tricorder-esque kind of things, which, by the way, you already have. Siri on your phone or Alexa on your Google phone, that's already there. It's just not, they're putting more limits on it because they're scared of it saying something racist or sexist. So they've got way more limits on it. That's what's slowing them down. They're big companies, but smaller companies are straight up in the DFAG zone of technology where they don't give a fuck.
Right.
So or DGAF, they don't give a fuck. So let me show you something. Now, I will say this. This might seem I happen to think it's awesome, but it takes a second for people to get used to it. The person that is their demo person is trans. That's all I'm going to say, because it takes you a
Okay.
second if you don't know, and you're like, is this AI or is it a AI fail? Because I'll show you real quick. The background on it looks so perfect. You're like, oh, this is whoops. Oh, I got to put Rob Glenn. And the other thing, you disappeared. Hold on, I got to copy you and put you in here. 1 second. So I'll pop you in. I can't do it behind the scenes right now because, again, software limitations being what they are,
No worries.
you
No
will,
worries.
it
Oh,
will
there you go.
freeze. There you are. So now, this is this thing is, if you want to look at it and kind of follow on, if it's too small, you'll be able. It's pretty clear what's going on. But this is from a company called Open Interpreter, I think is the name of
Okay.
their thing, and they have created a device that is, to our point, a UI for AI. It is this little puck, this little white ball cylinder. I don't even know what the fuck. It's like an egg that you carry
Okay.
around, and and I don't know. I'm just everything you want to know about sex, but we're afraid to ask. Slash sleeper slash any number of '70s Woody Allen jokes about technology come in. But you'll see what
Well,
I
like
mean.
what
Yeah.
roughly half of all technology is being used to develop porn, right?
Right. Well, that's all that's the accelerator. That's always the
Right.
accelerator. Yes. So we'll do this real quick. This is their opening video. Hold on.
ChatGPT introduced the world to this technology and became the fastest growing consumer application of all time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, corporations around the world have started building closed source, artificially intelligent devices. 6 weeks ago, we realized there was an opportunity to build an open source foundation for this next
Hang on.
generation.
6 weeks ago. For all practical purposes, this company didn't fucking exist. 6 weeks ago. This is like the robot I showed the other day that was like, the OpenAI's robot didn't exist 13 months ago, right?
Of computers, the Linux of this space. Something open, flexible, and free. An operating system with a language model at the center of it. I'm holding the first device powered by this operating system in my hand right now. It's called the O1.
There it is. So that's honestly, I like the fact that it's white and simple and very techy and all this kind of stuff. And it better chirp when you lose it, because I will. Also,
I have like what movie it looks like.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I already ordered one, by the way. It's pre-order. but it's $99. Watch what they do. And then let me remind you, 6 weeks ago, $99. This won't even be the top of it. This is not. Is this too loud, by the way? Is the audio too loud for it? Everybody?
You're saying that the images on there is what it created?
No. This is just their ad.
Oh, okay.
This is just the opening. Watch this. It'll show you what it does in a second. This is just their opening, like, you know, basically this is their developer conference video thing. I don't get it. What is it? You're about to find out.
This is the O1 Lite, the first open source language model computer. You talk to it like a person, and it operates a computer to help you get things done. You can run the language model on your computer at home or in our server in the cloud, making the O1 Lite fully portable when connected to Wi-Fi or a hotspot. To use it, you just push, talk, and then it thinks and responds.
By the way, to my point earlier about this person, they don't introduce her. They don't say her name, or she doesn't say her name. And so that's why I think a lot of people who were watching this online were like, is this an AI generated human with a male voice and a female body or whatever? That's the weird, there's a gap in their presentation about it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. A lot of
It's
people are
like-
saying, is it an AI person with a male sounding voice? It isn't. It's simply a trans person who works at the company, which is fucking cool. And they're, I mean, like, totally capable, you know, an important part of the team. That guy, I think it's awesome. I think it's great that this is the face forward of this particular company as well. I found it really, like, charming and cool. Anyways, but a lot of people were saying they thought it was AI and an AI mismatch or something because they don't say.
Let me show you what it can do. When's the next sunny day?
One moment.
This is their computer at home.
So it's connected to their computer.
The next sunny day is on March 9th.
Great. Am I doing anything on that day?
Let me check your calendar.
Okay, that's the step 2 that AI hasn't been able to do for a
You
while.
have no events scheduled for March 9th.
So
Then-
because the O1 is operating my personal computer at home, I didn't need to set up my calendar. It can just use it. Nice. Can you see if there are any concerts in Seattle on that day?
This is like the
Yes,
thing you're
you have
trying to make
several
for yourself.
options.
That's
Option
right.
1, Bad Bunny will be performing at the Climate Pledge Arena.
That's perfect. Can you add that to my calendar and then copy and paste a link to the ticket into the calendar event? And then actually, if you could text Paige the link and say something like, hey, do you want to go to this?
Watch this is natural language. Hey, can you text them something like?
Yeah.
Hey, you
Done.
want to go to
Yeah,
this?
The concert is on your...
That's
see what
the
I'm
part that's unique
That's the huge leap forward. And
in
I'm telling you, 6 fucking weeks ago, people.
calendar, and Paige has been texted.
Now it's built on. Let's understand real quick. It is built on the structure of ChatGPT. This is what they did was effectively design a physical thing that is a carryable assistant. Now, rich people, famous people, politicians, business leaders, they all have assistants. One of the coolest things about getting to that point is that they have assistants. And it allows them to be more productive with their time and take more vacations than normal people do and work smarter and use their, kind of outsource the little work to somebody else in that, right, in their life, which allows them that kind of accelerated life that we all kind of look forward to. This is a $99 thing that you hold in your hand that does the exact same thing. I'm telling you, later on this year, they're announcing an update to Siri that will do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I mean, Apple's been doing this pullback to reach this point, right? Where they're like, not yet, not yet, not yet. We're going to watch everybody else kind of mess around in this space. And then this kind of stuff will be common amongst your entire Apple substructure. The same thing will be available through either Microsoft or Google in a PC substructure. And Microsoft will obviously be more tied in to all the other stuff if you use, their, Office and all that shit, that they'll be able to thread it. Google will try to thread you in. And basically what we're all going to be, I think they're aiming at is just corralling us all into their structure. This one
Right.
doesn't care. That's the other interesting thing. So let me keep it going.
Awesome, thanks.
You're welcome. By the way, you've just received an email from Mike asking about your progress on an article. Would you like to respond to it now?
So I need to send that file to Mike, but it's on my computer at home. Hey, that article should be on my desktop. It's called the Universal Interface.
There's a file titled the Universal Interface.pdf on your desktop. Do you want me to send it to Mike?
Now, at this point, I could ask my light to read or even edit that document, but I'm just going to send it to Mike. Yes, please send it.
But like, again, this is simply, you could do this sitting at your computer. You could sit down in front of your computer and see this and look up the next day and all that kind of shit and send it and all that kind of stuff. And think about all the just typing and little stuff that you have to do, moving and clicking shit around, which add no value to your life. Your ability to slide a file into an email is not a useful, functional, helpful part of your time. It is not something that makes you stronger, better, more capable because you can go click, click. Something else doing it for you is actually what makes you stronger, better, and able to, be more, competitive in life and, have more time for family, blah, blah, blah. So, right. So one more bit of it, and then we'll talk about this.
The document has been emailed to Mike.
Great. So you can kind of think of the O1 light as like a smart person that's in front of your computer. How could that be useful? Let's head back now, and I'll show you something even bigger.
Yeah. 6 weeks ago, $99, open source. Just keep those in your brain, which means anybody can work on it, modify it, create their own version, their variation, which is, I can see Rob's kind of gears turning right now.
This is my laptop, and it's the one that the light has been operating. Out of the box, it's pretty good at using my computer, but it can't do everything. So let's teach it to use a desktop application that it's never seen.
This is so fucked up. Watch this.
Hey, I want to teach you something.
Sounds good. What do you want to teach me to do?
I'm going to show you how to send a Slack message.
Okay, I'm ready. What's the first step?
First, open Slack.
It looks like Slack is open. Did I do that right?
Yeah, you did.
Great, what's next?
Hit Command K.
Done. Did I do that correctly?
Yeah, that worked. Okay, now type out the name of the recipient, like, for example, Ty, then press Enter.
Done.
So
Let me.
they're basically going through a logic problem,
Yep.
but instead of typing it out, they're just talking to the thing.
Right,
I mean,
which
that's
is-
how it works.
Yes, that's the UI part of it that I was talking about, that it is another
Right.
version. Because, like, you know what I love and still can't use? Apple shortcuts. Apple shortcuts is fucking fantastic. But once I start getting near it, I'm like, gih. Like, it's got so many options, and the other stuff people create for it, I have no idea why I would use that in my life. And it's, and linking it to other stuff, it's just like, or if this, then that, which is what we're really talking about here. If people don't know, IFTTT, which is a programming, and kind of, shortcut system. How would you describe it, Rob? Like,
It's a multi-level. It's progressing through a question. So,
right.
So I would like to drive down the street. Well, if the street is straight, go straight. If the street is
Curve,
I
turn.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
multi-step problem solving.
Right. Yeah. And if you were like, okay, if this, then that. If I walk in the front door of my house, then turn on the lights in the living room. If the lights on the, in the basement are on, turn them off when I come home because I'm going upstairs and I don't need to go down there until later. That kind of thing. So
Right.
you could go and you could go once if you know, then when I reach up, you know, if I arrive upstairs, as soon as I pass the sensor that's upstairs, turn on my bedroom lights and those kind of things. That would be the one version. This is also a version of that, I think, right?
Yeah.
IFTTT.
Well, so I think that the most, it seems like, oh my God, that's like this thing that was just invented, and how did they do it so fast? Well, but really, all they did was they applied an
Right.
LLM, a way of communicating with the computer,
Chat
to
GPT, right?
use all the stuff already on the computer.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's actually iterative. It's not
It's not
in
smart.
like a
I mean,
brand
it
new
is.
invention,
It's
if that
smart and
makes sense.
cool, but the ability to do it and the point of it is like yes, it's on a practical sense not a huge elevation of things, but it is a practical use of stuff that's available
Right,
to you that will
right.
shorten the
So
time. Yeah,
yeah, the goal of technology, Apple kind of talks about this, it's to be invisible.
right,
So you you work with your computer through your keyboard and mouse, but that's a really inefficient way
right.
to work. It's just the only way we have now. And so the dream has always been, like Musk has his Neuralink, like you just think it and it does it.
Right, right.
Um, but these things are like the reason to sort of not be scared about it, and also to change our thinking. Like
Yeah.
it, it's this conversation, I think, should be about like use like how do we look at this in a way which changes our way of thinking about things, which then makes it less scary, makes it
Hmm.
more productive, those sort of things. And it's a lot of little things that come together, and the thing that unlocks them is one element, but it's still got to go through those other elements in order to be useful to us, right?
Right.
So like the CERN particle collider, like when you think about that crazy thing, you're just like, how in the world did that ever come to be? Well, it
Uh-huh.
came to be because a whole lot of different people did a whole lot of little things, and they put a whole lot of little things into that thing, and they all work together,
That's right.
um,
Which
and
is the
that's
miracle of
effectively
CERN
what's happening
is that it is that colliding of capability of invention and ideas and
right
where separately I mean the wheel like people will talk about the invention of the wheel being so crucial to humanity or whatever bullshit it was the axle because a wheel rolling down the by itself is useless it's even on a wheelbarrow you have an axle
sure.
you
Yeah,
have
I mean,
right and
everything
so
needs everything else around it, I
right.
guess.
So let's. I want to finish the rest of this, and I'll just show you because again, shortcuts creating these kind of things used to be like you had to sit down and type and click through them, but it's the conversational aspect of this that I find very positive. And again, this is the O1 of one company. I'm not saying this is the quintessential by any stretch, but this is where things are
You know
going.
if I did that right.
Yes, you did. Now I want you to click on the text box at the bottom that says Message Tie.
That's weird. Moving the mouse. Yeah.
I've clicked the text box. Did I do that right?
Yeah, you did. Okay, now you can write the message. For example, hey Ty, then press enter.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like I've sent the message. Is that right?
Yes, and that's all there is to this skill, so you can save it now.
Sure thing.
Thanks, Andrea.
I've just learned the skill send a Slack message.
Yes. Oh, somebody in the chat room just said, let me see if I can, I don't know if I can pop it up on the screen. Awesome. Awesome for disabled people who have trouble typing. I totally agree. Like of all things, again, it's sort of like when Neuralink's a shit example, but Neuralink is initially being, used for people who are, paralyzed, have locked in syndrome, other stuff like that. And it absolutely would have use in a situation like that. What will happen though is eventually you'll either have wearables that able people that don't need a brain implant will be able to use 80% of that because you don't need help moving. Let's say there was a robotic aspect to your body, you don't need that. You could use that just with a wearable as opposed to having to have an implant, those kind of things. And so
Right.
even just the simplicity of this one's called the
So you can do this with
interpreter
any workflow, any
01.
desktop application, or even a pipeline of applications and websites without setting up any authentication. It just uses your computer. But here's where it gets interesting.
No, it's not interesting so far.
Okay, now I want you to monitor my email. If you get any invoices, could you take a look at the attachments and then Slack all the relevant details to Mike?
That's another like useful, way of funneling stuff. Again, most of this, you're right. Like Rob is right, and that's what I'm trying to get across to people is that this is not something that's just like bizarrely impossible. It's just a bunch of parts finally coming together into another version of user interface.
Yeah,
All right.
it's so, specific to those individual problems.
Right.
If you were to search your email for invoices, that's a pretty complex task.
Yeah.
It's when you really get down to it, because when people send you an email that has an invoice in it, do they say the word invoice in it? Do they have a
Right.
file? Maybe they have a file in it, maybe it's not. Do they call the file invoice?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at it, if you're looking at that problem specifically from the standpoint of looking for the word invoice, you will lose you'll lose a lot of, you won't get them all. Let's put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it in terms of like the language around invoice, which is really what the LLM's doing. When you and anybody sort of in the chat, a lot of people that have used like Mid-Journey and things like that, they catch this problem from the opposite direction. They would like it to do something specific, and they
Mm-hmm.
ask it to do something specific, and it does something completely different, right? Well, because it understood what you asked in a different way,
Right.
or the way it works actually is that it takes that thing and it'll do it a billion times, and it just gives you one of those times or
Right.
5 of those times or whatever. So I think that, to me, what that shows is the power of, I would say, an individual being able to do something that previously could never have been done
Right.
by, without a team of people, without and cross what am I trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Like the infrastructure of a particular industry or a particular like
yeah,
a factory
functions, cross
floor or
functions,
yeah, right,
right? Like,
multiple functions.
even inside of like the thing that they're working on, there's hardware designers, there's software designers, and they need to communicate, and they use different language when they communicate. And so, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a thing overlaid over a whole bunch of things that already exist, and it just sort of makes those things more accessible, faster, and
Right.
in what I'm trying to say is more invisible. Like,
Yeah.
when you have to think about go find the invoices, our brains, if we were physically searching for invoices in our email, we would remember a few things. Oh, Joe, he never says invoice, he says bill.
Right.
So I'm going to search for bill and I'm going to search for invoice, and so that's what the LLM is doing.
Right.
Just kind of like we think.
Yeah. Exactly. And the interesting thing about this the O1 or whatever, and I'll show you again this is their website real quick with their little art on it and whatever. At the bottom of the page, I don't have to scroll up to do this. There's a link, pre-order the light, but right next to it, which is relatively new to the entire world, is build your own
Sure.
because it's open source. And so not only do they it takes you to their GitHub page, which is where the software is if you wanted to dick around with this. But the hardware as well. The O1 Lite is an ESP32 based voice interface. Build the instructions here. There you go. This is the actual hardware to set up audio recording playback on this M5 Atom. Do the following: open Arduino. But like you can make your own, and the same thing is true of like a audio interface on your computer, right? And that's what Siri's doing when it's listening all the time, or Alexa if you let it in your work environment, you turn it on and it just listens while you're talking until you say its name, and then I even asked this morning. I asked Copilot just because I was curious. I was like, "Is there a hotkey I can use to make you start and stop listening?" And it said, "Not right now." And I was like, "All right, well, that's worth working on."
There is, but I don't want you to know about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, right. That's exactly true. Right. Yeah. I don't want you to stop me. Right. This is, again, I don't want to give the impression that this is the be all end all of this. And Rob, I hope you can, come on in the future as this stuff plays out, because I have, like, I'm sure you do, in my note-taking software, I have a bunch of like AI tools that when they came out, I was like, this is awesome, I'll use this or whatever. And now they are almost entirely obsolete. There are only a couple that are updating
So
because it's happening so fast.
we work really hard on that practice because
Yeah,
we're doing a lot of R&D work for a lot of different people, for
right.
ourselves as well. And so when you look at this, maybe like that, like
Mhm.
maybe I could help sort of like generalize it more, instead of the specifics, sort of talk about like what are the concepts happening here, and how are those things going to get to like normal people?
Right.
How will you see them in your life? Maybe you won't see them. Like it might just naturally happen,
Hmm.
and it just sort of becomes part of something you're doing. But when it comes to like business, like small business owners, uh, people who are developing new things, uh, people who are creatives, we last time we talked, I talk a lot about creativity and how the execution
Right.
of what you're trying to create is the thing that stops your creativity, right?
Hmm.
Am I lagging a little bit?
No, no, no. You're good. I
Okay.
like
Um,
Andrea was just talking to me in
so
the chat, but yeah, it's okay.
it's like I have an idea,
Hmm.
and so you write it down. If you're a writer, you write it down. Well, the act of writing took time. And in
Yes.
that time, one of two things happens. Well, more than one of two, but either you stop because you say, oh, that idea sucks, or it brings you to another idea and you continue on. There's maybe a lot of gray area in the middle.
Hmm.
So, what technology has done for us at my company, for myself, is it shortened the execution time. So you can get to what you're trying it to be, like
Hmm.
what you can get there way faster, and then you can try it again and again and again and again.
Yes.
And by doing that, you get to something more interesting. And then what we do a lot is we say, okay, it used to be that when someone called on us to make the thing,
Right.
we would say it's going to cost you, I'll make up numbers, $1,000 per concept.
Right.
So you want 5 concepts, it's $5,000. And now, in all of this stuff, people then start to have different expectations of what things should cost. So I'm using this as an example. It happens across all products.
Yeah.
And when you start getting into 3D printing, it takes another quick turn. But anyway, so it's like, why would I pay you $1,000 per concept when I can just go to Midjourney, type in a sentence, and I can get 100 different pictures
Yes.
of that thing, right? So you have to change your way of thinking to, or maybe your value proposition,
Hmm.
to the idea that it's not the execution that we're doing anymore, it's the solution.
Yes.
Just one way of thinking about it. So instead of charging 1,000 per, you charge 5 for one.
Right.
I'm really simplifying it. The point I'm trying to make is that's what technology does is in movies, like in CG in movies. It
Hmm.
it was Pixar, and then in all the Marvels it looks really real, but there's still like you can still tell a lot of things is CG.
Hmm.
But then all of a sudden now you start changing what CG means, like in the new Dune, it's a world which doesn't exist. So because
Yes.
you have no expectation of what it is, you
Right.
don't put the same like mental rules on
Right.
it,
That doesn't look
and
like a
thus you
robot in the
suspend
same
disbelief,
environment.
right?
There's a great example. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. I'll see if I can find the link to it because I've been hunting it down. Because Summer and I both loved Mindhunter, the series.
Yeah.
the amount of CGI in that show that is enormous, and
Sure.
people have no idea.
Yeah, because
Like,
it's really hard to, in period pieces, have some of the most CGI in them.
yeah, because they are literally recreating the sky almost entirely. There's a scene where they get out of the car and they're standing and having an argument, and as they do, this airplane takes off in the background, and it looks absolutely real. And the amount of money it would take to time the takeoff of a fucking airplane, right? And to do that, or even just do a shit matte cut over the top of them, and
Right.
shoot from that angle, just wait for a plane to take off where the light matches what you're doing, is nuts, right?
Right.
If you're even by a real airport at all, because you wouldn't be able to shoot fucking dialogue if that was the case, right? Because planes would be taking off all the time. If you don't believe me, ask Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago when he tries to have a fucking presser on the fucking stoop. But if you look at it, they painted so much shit into that. It's amazing. The Atlanta from 1981 that they created in the background on a ton of this stuff it's incredible. And
Yeah.
that's really like the value. I'll show you real quick before we lose you. And I know you're a busy fellow, so I want to thank everybody.
NVIDIA
for,
has just
let me jump to this real quick. Pause, you dumbass.
I think there were some questions that came through. I
Yes,
can't
they
see
were.
it in the chat.
Yeah. So chat room. One of the ones
can-
was, what design software do you use the most? Was one of the first ones I saw.
Yeah, so we don't use AI in our
Right.
work. Well, we do, but it's tangential. We have many categories, but the main category for engineering, we use SolidWorks. A lot of people know Fusion 360. So that's our CAD. For visual effects, we use, or for still renderings, we use either Blender or Cinema 4D. And then we use a render engine called Octane, if anybody knows what that means.
Sure.
We use like all the Adobe stuff, After Effects, Premiere, Photoshop, all that. We've been using Figma a lot lately, which I love Figma. If anybody does any form of like web
PHIGMA
design,
is that
what's that?
Is it PHIGMA, that one? Figma?
No, FIMGA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
GMA.
kind of a little bit like, how do I describe that? Like Canva. Canva's like a lighter version of Figma.
Sure.
These are really interesting things that are, everything's kind of moving to being web-based.
Yeah.
And all that does is it just sort of democratizes everything,
Right. Because everybody has the same tools available to them, even if they're not the full paid for version. Even the cheap version is greater than anything anybody had up till 5 years ago. And half the brand new shit that you pay for, only the top liners use it at all. You know what I mean?
And then when it comes to AI, the thing that I would say that is most interesting to me, the people that I know that are using it, is they're like a lot of people use the one you have on yours, Midjourney. Is that the one that you have on yours?
Well,
a lot of people use
a
that.
mix
It's
of
very
them.
powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's like a sort of a new layer to all of them where you can create personas. And the persona thing is very, very interesting because I was telling Hal the other day that a lot of people in design and sales marketing, they're starting to use them as focus groups. So you can sort of set a persona, you can define a persona, which is what people do for focus groups if they do it in reverse. They look for certain people in certain categories, demographics.
People who buy certain things, watch certain movies, do that kind of stuff, and they fill out these things. And
you can literally like make a bio. You can write your own bio of a person, and then make a persona using Midjourney does it, ChatGPT does it now, and then you can start to communicate with it as if they were that person.
Right.
Which is that's pretty sick in my opinion.
And then you were mentioning that you can make them converse with each other. So basically,
Yes,
you can
exactly.
set up a very. It's interesting. You could even do experiments on focus groups themselves. Create a very
Right.
personable bot that talks very gingerly and sweetly to people, and you can have a brusque one, and you can have one that is seemingly disinterested, or one who's really in love with the product. And you take those four personalities, and then you create 35 personalities from
Right.
based on sales data and all kinds of shit. And those fake people sit in a fake non-existent virtual room, and those four different people come through in successive order and in milliseconds conduct what would be a 6-week theoretical
Right.
interaction to see what version of a focus group leader would give you a truer example of what real people would like. For example, if you have a nice person or a dud or whatever, you'll get a better version of what you'll see what audiences react to better. And on the same instance, you can just have them run different questions, thousands of variant versions of the question to see until you get what you like, until they understand the product or they understand what you're trying to sell or
Right.
say.
And
It's
really,
crazy.
it has the biggest thing to like work on in these things is actually correlation. And what I mean by that is if you ask it and it gives you a question, does it correlate with reality of the
Mhm.
reality of your so inside of engineering, there's a lot of simulation that happens. It's called
Right.
FEA, finite element analysis.
Mhm.
And the key to FEA is that you set up the simulation, it tells you if something breaks, let's say, or if it bends or whatever.
Mhm.
You have to make sure that what it told you actually is real,
True,
right?
right.
And so there's a whole nother level of like verifying the
Data
simulation.
value.
So the correlation is the thing. And as we talk about these things, it's really easy to sort of get overwhelmed, to going back
Right.
to kind of the original thing. And this isn't a thing which is going to like take away all jobs and take away all things. It's simply going to decrease, not simply,
Yeah.
it's going to decrease the
Mhm.
amount of iteration. It's going to decrease the amount, it's going to increase the amount of creativity.
Mhm.
And that's okay. Like, it's actually, that's part of what reshoring, when you get into, again, politics
Right.
and policy, part of reshoring is not having so much manual labor and not
Especially
having
the
to.
back breaking work of it.
Exactly. And
Right.
so it doesn't mean you don't have the labor anymore. It just means the labor changes to something different. And
Right.
that's why we need to stay so open-minded about it, so that
Mhm.
we see what the new thing is to teach ourselves to do, or to teach our kids to do, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just education itself. Like you talk about, like creating these personas based on psychology and based on interviews with children and all these kind of things. You could create a classroom full of kids from divergent backgrounds in an area, and you go, "Hey, here's the socioeconomic data from our neighborhood." Teaching those kind of kids math requires a different thing than teaching kids from
Right.
another socioeconomic background. And so this AI is going to come up with a lesson plan that the teacher can teach to the kids that will be fine tuned to how the majority of those kids will hear, and how to serve the ones that don't, that aren't directly in line with it, including, like, I guess, rebels in the classroom. So to your point, I want to show something on screen, and this is NVIDIA's Eureka, which I think you're familiar with, which is their environment for teaching robots. It is a virtual environment that they created for teaching robots. And let me turn the sound off because we don't need to actually hear that. But this is how, we've talked about, you and I, like how you teach a robot to do something without it actually. I'll open it up to full screen. Um, Having to build the robot yet, much less endanger people around it or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, this stuff is really interesting to me as well. So we've spent a ton of time trying to make stuff on a screen look real,
Hmm.
right? Inside, like going back to some of the VFX stuff, you'll see on Pixar or Disney or whoever, different animation studios, and you'll see these like rigs and bones, and then there's rendered over the top of it. So these are artists who are like trying to get their animated or their virtual rig of a person to look more real on screen, right?
Yeah.
And so that's happening in the computer and like coming into the screen. Separately, the learning models like can look at pictures and videos of a real person running, and it can essentially project bones onto them,
Mm-hmm.
and then correlate that with the thing that you just tried to do. In movies, you'll see a lot of guys in or men and women in green outfits with balls all over them, and then they run, and then that
Ping
thing
pong
turns into
balls.
the thing and
Calm
controls the
down,
thing.
chat room.
so what I'm trying to get at is it's like a loop. It's like the real teaches the fake and the fake teaches the real,
Mm-hmm.
and you it gets kind of wild to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And really kind of what you're getting at is like what's real now? Like what's the new reality?
Right. Well, and also
And then
like,
what do we accept as reality?
yeah, the training of it can happen trillions of times.
Yes. Exactly.
Because it's digital, and so they create all the physics and all the situations. They used to, when you wanted to build a robot, you had to build the fucking thing, and the thing had to like be. You had to electrify parts of it and see if it could stand up, and it would start to tilt. And you're like, that servo's not firing when it starts to lean this way, and so we need to get it to move back this way. And the hydraulic system on this has to be tuned to a certain density so that it has enough cushion to not fall over and not be stiff, but also enough to react to the environment, for example. Well, you can put all those parts into a digital simulator now, and it will practice. And it will practice at a, these are slowed down visuals to kind of show an example of this, but it is, yeah. And this is where Human Fall Flat and all those games came from, if you haven't seen those. It's pretty hilarious.
My kids play Totally Accurate Battle Simulator.
Oh my God, like so does Camp. Yeah, it's hilarious. Tabs.
It's fun.
For those of you who don't know, Totally Accurate Battle Simulator is an ironic title, and you create all these guys like with they just fire arrows and then they just kind of fall over, or you'll create one guy who's got a giant hammer, and it's like 100 guys with arrows versus one guy with a giant dude with a hammer, and they just kind of towards each other, and it's kind of hilarious. It's like the digital version of those little toys, what I call the narcolepsy toys, where you push the bottom and the guy just loses it. That turned into a whole friggin' game model. But it was where they just stopped along the way because it was hilarious. Like Goat Simulator is another one of those. For those that don't know, there's a game called Goat Simulator, which is based on an error that happened, that they would make this tongue come out of this goat, but the digits that make up its tongue would get stuck to stuff, and it would just stretch, and the tongue would stick to things and drag things. So instead of fixing it, they made a whole other game, right? Yeah. So, but
all right. Well, yeah. I'm not sure how everybody receives our nerd talk, but maybe I'll go back and review it, and
sure.
Just we can adjust next time if people like it.
Yeah, this is the first of many conversations, I hope, where people can, because my goal for it, I think, is the same as yours, which is how do we make this help and not hurt, and get people to get used to because it's coming, and if we don't adapt and use it, the awfuls will.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That will be left out.
I like to think about it as like everybody always goes to, how is this thing going to kill me? How is this going to take my job? It's like, no, I try to do the opposite, try to be more positive about it. And how is this going to be better for us and for humanity? And
again, I think having that assistant,
there's more good than bad.
Yeah, having an assistant available to you, and people don't even realize with your phone the available assistant aspect of it that you have already is incredible compared to any human being who lived, before you. We just don't use it for much. We don't take advantage of the best parts of it, right? And the same thing is true of, maybe Open Interpreter's thing turns into something, maybe not, right? Right? So the important thing is that, we build our comfort level with it. Yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, yeah, exactly. Just get used to what's out there and how it's how can you piece it in as a
Mhm.
business, we always try to like figure out a way. We don't like to be bleeding edge on anything because that breaks, right?
Yeah,
So we
I
just
do.
kind of like
You do,
slowly.
but
I know
everybody
you
else
do.
doesn't.
There's
That's right.
Texas Paul.
There he is. Yeah, so
Uh,
Texas Paul's waiting in the wings. He's going to come on. Tara's still sick, apparently. That's part of what I was working on behind the scenes. I'm sorry. So Texas Paul will be joining us in a minute to talk about, because we just passed a budget that just passed the House, and a couple other things that are happening. So that'll be good. But uh, for those of you like, I love Rob. He's a great human being and really smart. And I think we both share kind of that stoic optimism about this stuff, that just like keep calm and carry on about AI and these advancements, because they're going to be a natural support that will allow the normies like the rest of us, yes, um, allow the normies to augment our lives in a way that heretofore only kings and potentates and heads of industry could do. It was just impossible for any of us to have these options in life, and now it's increasingly not. So yeah,
exactly.
so everybody in the chat is just saying thanks, Rob, a bunch, which is great.
Oh, thank
And
you.
here you
Thank you
go.
very much.
There's go. Whoops. Here, hold on. There you go. Get back here. There you go. Thanks, Rob. There you go. Vincent says Rob reminds me of my nephew,
Oh,
which
well,
is
you got
lovely.
a nice nephew then, don't you?
Yes, he does. He's absolutely very smart nephew. Yes, very helpful. Coolest nerd ever. Congratulations. I think they're talking about
Appreciate it. I
you,
like
actually,
that one.
Rob.
I
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
pretty good.
Nerds
Thanks, Rob
rule,
Glenn.
man.
There you go. Absolutely. So, in all
Thank you,
honesty,
everybody.
yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate it greatly, and we'll do more of this because, again, I think the Obama administration, or like, listen to me, the Biden administration is going to be the first. They had a tech czar, but the Biden administration is going to be the first to have an AI czar. They're going to have to,
Yeah.
and that's just going to be a normal part of it. The DoD, I watched the whole DoD AI um, hearing the other day, and it was hysterical watching Nancy Mace try to wrap her fucking brain around this stuff. I was like, I wanted to barge in. I'm sure if you saw it, you would too. And they're dealing with it whether they like it or not, right?
Yeah, we have to. It's here.
Yeah.
And really, it's like I call it a mirror because it's like you can think of it as it's us.
Yes.
Like it's emulating us. So like just, be
Right.
a good human being and use it for good.
Absolutely. There you go. And on that note, thank you so much, Rob Glenn, and hopefully we can
Thank
have
you.
you on
Have a good one.
next Friday. That would be awesome. I'll be in LA for that one, so I'll be ice skating uphill tech wise.
Yeah.
So thanks so much, brother.
Thank you,
Appreciate
pal.
it. All right.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Hi, Texas Paul. Have a good one.
Cheers. And then I'm gonna bring in Texas Paul. Just give me 1 second. Thanks, Rob. See you soon. And
Good to
then
meet you, Glenn.
yeah. And there you go. And it's not you. Hold on 1 second. You're still there. Hold on. I'm gonna swap this out. Oh, there you go. And I'll put in Texas Paul and this guy, and he'll be Bob for just 1 second, and then I'll fix that part of it in just 1 second. Boink. There we go. And beep. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. If I may, the one, the only Texas Paul. Thank you, brother, for being here. Let me pop you into the other guest thing in here too. And so you'll be on Instagram as well. I have to do this in front on camera, unfortunately, because the when I'm streaming vertically to Instagram and these things, it overtaxes the system. And if I go to use the producer to do it behind the scenes, it will collapse everything. This is boring and annoying, but there's Texas Paul's elbow, and he's so. But it allows me to stream elsewhere. It's totally what Rob was talking about me like stampeding into technology when it's not necessarily advisable. How you doing this morning, Texas Paul? Can you hear me all right? Can you hear me? Whoop, he went away. Did I lose him? Where'd he go? Right when we had him. Where'd he go? Come back. Come back, Texas Paul. We were so close. All right, hold on. He'll pop back in a second. Did he? Oh, there he comes. Hold on. He'll come back. There you go. There you
Sorry
go.
about
That's okay. You're out in the sticks. I completely understand. Now, before I dive into our the situation with the budget and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to show you a piece of video that I'm sure you saw the New York Post article that cover this morning about the border, which, by the way, the
Mhm.
Republicans own.
Yeah.
And the best part about it, and it is very difficult to find the best part about it, but the best part about it for me was the hysterical part. If you continue to watch, because they posted a picture of the the border situation on their cover, and yet if when you see the video, I'll show it right here. Let's see.
You talking about El Paso?
Yes, El Paso. The charge at the El Paso gate. Where is it? So the picture was. Here you go.
While you dig that up, there's a couple things
Yeah.
I want to talk about this. If you're gonna, are you gonna show the video to the audience?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple
But
things to notice here. One,
Yeah. Go ahead.
it is a monolithic crowd. These are actors. This is agitprop. This
Yes.
is not real. This is agitprop.
Yeah, these guys
They're
are
all
paid
young
to
men the
attack the
same age.
border. Right.
Exactly. This barbed wire is not the entire border. There's 1,254 miles of Texas border. There's approximately 2 to 3 miles of this razor wire in 3 different places. This is a postage stamp size swatch of razor wire.
Right.
These young men supposedly, stay with me here, walked up to the border as a group, looked down, and saw razor wire. Now, there wasn't razor wire over there, and there wasn't razor wire over there, but they decided collectively as a group to say, well, let's cross where there are guards and razor wire.
Right. Totally. Also, yeah, it's again, this is the kind of stuff Putin pays for. This is the kind of stuff China would pay for. This is also the kind of stuff that Donald John Trump would pay for. I would like to remind everyone that there were ads discovered in South American newspapers and on these handout leaflets that were coming from groups linked to the Heritage Foundation that were basically advertising an open border at the U.S. By the way, and creating these caravans. That was the other thing, is that these were the folks that were creating the caravans as they did it. So let me transition over to here and show you this real quick. This is the picture right here, is the one that you would see on the cover of the Post this morning, right? This is that's the shot. Oh my God. And migrants break barriers and rush border patrol in El Paso. These are National Guard guys, I think, on the inside of that. These are Texas National Guard. And then these guys all, again, run through at this one particular point as if they were showing up for a fucking photo shoot. You're absolutely right. Now, check this out. This was my favorite part of it, though. Let's say, play. Turn the audio off because you don't need to see it. So they break down, that these guys tear it apart. And then there's these guards are waiting there. And these guards, I think that guy's got a gun, but I don't think the other ones do. They start pushing and shoving through this. And he's trying to, I don't, this guy has a gun, but I don't know that those guys do. Anyways, this guy busts through. Then they all start running for this part, which is, I find, it's weird that the New York Post article doesn't show this. And by the way, this is not Trump's wall. This is a gate that's existed for a long time. This is one of the gates that they had in the area where Trump, restructured part of the wall or whatever, just to basically make it match the look of his whole thing. What the fuck am I looking at?
What you're looking at agitprop. You're looking at completely manufactured out of the Russian embassy in Mexico City. They coordinate these things. They're funded by right-wing groups, billionaires, basically. I call them the right-wing frat boy club. And they hired actors. They told them to dress the same. You notice they're all in dark hoodies and dark coats and hoodies. And this is the hilarious part, because you could just see and cut.
Right.
I mean, it's just hilarious.
Right.
How?
And the New York Post runs, it cuts it, they run this is the video from their Twitter. But when you look at the actual paper, that's not a moving picture even on their site. It's a still. And the still shows them breaking through a fence, which has got this, build that wall bullshit all over it, where it's in an area where we've had a wall-like structure forever. They didn't even, by the way, El Paso has a couple of pass-throughs in the gate where trucks go through that are open all the time. They don't even have a gate mechanism on them. The Biden administration wants to add a gate to them. They're in the border bill, but the Republicans rejected it. But why aren't they running at that point? If I was actually trying to get in the fucking country, I would certainly run through the place that has no razor wire and a gap in the fucking wall. Right?
Well, yeah, Hal. Yeah, I mean, literally, if you're standing there, the reason you're getting this camera angle and this cameraman is shooting at this camera angle is one that whole razor wire thing is bullshit. If you go back and look at it, there stands with sandbags on them. It's not a wall. It's not. They've got a few T-posts in the wall every once in a while. They tie them in the ground. They tie them to, but this is not anything that you would fire somebody that built a fence at your house like this.
Yes,
I mean, it's ridiculous. Second of all, why did they come here? If you literally go a football field left or right, there is no razor wire.
Right.
None.
Yes.
There's no razor wire. All you got to do is just walk. And these are young, sprightly men. They're obviously, this was a casting call.
Uh-huh.
Because there are no women there. There are no children. This is a monolithic group of hired actors that ran at, and you could see Humvees on the other side.
Yeah.
They're why are there command vehicles with the immigrants? You know, I mean, it's hilarious.
Right.
It's just so badly done.
Right. And well, the idea is that this is what they want you to see. This is it's like an invasion. And Donald Trump will talk about this moment as, it's like, holy shit, it is an invasion. Because it wasn't looking like an invasion to people. Also, if you keep rolling, it ain't an invasion, folks. It's not. Like, that's what you're absolutely right. That this is like, look at this shot right here. Besides soldier ass, which I'm sure they were like, dude, get out of the way. You're fucking with our shot. Like, watch, like, dude, move. Meanwhile, what are you doing? Watching? And I love how, like, he's standing there and then he gets out of the way, which is weird. Like, why aren't you helping them if this is the thing? And also, you're just going to move? Because this is the shot we need right there. I mean, that's what the dude with the fucking blanket and these folks, they're trying to recreate the exit from Afghanistan visuals around the Mexico border. And the sad thing is it's not working for them. I mean, it's not sad for us, but it's sad for them. This is just fucking hilarious. And by the way, my response to this was, of course, but I thought the border was wide open. Why would they even have to do this if they could just, in the words of Glenn Beck, waltz right into the country? Maybe they need dancing lessons. That must be it. But that was, sorry. That's the fascinating part to me is like, it's just so obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And it's obvious why they're doing it too, because everybody's really tired of hearing Republicans say the word border. You're killing the funding to solve the problems. We want to hire judges, staff. We want to hire we want to buy scanners. We want to buy sniffers for the border. We want to implement technology to actually make this process smoother, faster, and more secure. And you're blocking it all while saying the word border. And there's actually a phrase that's been coined now, border boredom.
Yes.
Because people are just losing interest in what they're saying. So we had to have an invasion.
Well, especially on the day the House passes the budget, right? How odd is that?
Right.
Like, this is the day they're passing it, and all of a sudden there's this like border invasion thing because the Republicans are betting that they can run on this, right? They're betting that this is going to be their thing, right? And the only thing they have left is the border. And if the bill gets passed and Biden's able to go, cool, shut it down, because he doesn't have the ability that Trump had because he doesn't have a pandemic. That was the key thing. Title 42 and the shutdown of the border to make it legal under international law and within our own laws and making it constitutional. One of the reason Trump was able to do that was we had a pandemic. And now everybody wants it in the same way that the Bush administration tried to use the war on terror as a reason to shut it down several times. But the war on terror is not a war. It's not the same shit. It doesn't count, right? And
Well,
yeah,
Title 42, since you brought it up,
yes, is the reason we have a border crisis.
That is Greg Abbott's fault.
Yep.
We found out that Title 42 was a disaster for immigration because there was no teeth in it. Literally, you just got to ride back to the border. So when they tell you how that there's 7 to 8 million people. No. Those are engagements. It's the same damn person that came over 10, 12, 15 times,
right?
That never had anything put on the record because we weren't under Title 8, which is what we're under now, where you actually get prosecuted. You know, there's actual
That's the part that makes you an illegal. Under Title 42, no one's illegal. That's the weird part. Under Title 42, you just get rejected. It doesn't go on your record. They don't fingerprint you and go, if you try this again, you're not coming back. They simply return you to the other side where you can pick up another bag of fentanyl and go right across. Effectively, they're paying you to be a transit system for fentanyl and human beings.
And Greg Abbott sued Joe Biden to keep that broke-ass Title 42 in place. Sued him.
Right.
You know, because we knew what it was doing.
They want the controversy to run on. It benefits them if it's a catastrophe. And Title 42 was one of those things where it looked like a solution, but it was actually the problem. So they could, it was a win-win for them, right? They knew they could keep turning people away under Title 42, but they also knew that those same people would cross again and again and again and be counted every time they're interacted with by the CBP as another human being. Not the same fucker coming across 7 times. No, congratulations, 7, they born 6 new people. Out of 1 becomes 6. It's the migrant version of loaves and fishes. Abbott and Trump were able to turn 2 fish into a multitude. And that's what Title 42 does. And recidivism was through the fucking roof, right? So do you think the guy that got arrested for assaulting the soldier down there will confess to, somebody will ask him, hey, why'd you cross the border in the first fucking place? And then he'll get into,
they never they didn't.
Yeah, I got 2 words for the Republicans.
They didn't arrest anybody.
Crisis actors. They arrested allegedly 1 guy for assaulting a soldier, and there were supposedly 2 others, possibly. This is the article cover, by the way. I wanted to show everybody that we're kind of talking about in this regard, and it's just like fucking look at the setup on this onslaught. And my favorite part of this one is, Texas Paul. You know what my fucking favorite part of this whole thing is? It's my favorite part. The moment illegal migrants rush border guard, tear down fence. It wasn't the moment they ran smack dab into the actual gate. And it's also not the moment people went, why the fuck is there a fence in front of a gate? Oh, because we put it there so they could tear it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's all for show.
Yep.
It is all for show. I mean, and you know what's even worse is that I know you're going to cover a lot of the stuff that's going on in Congress today.
Yeah.
Is that Biden took him to the woodshed on this budget.
Yeah.
But everything he got his border funding. He got a lot of his border funding, but the only things that they would fund were things that hurt people.
Yeah.
That was all the Republicans would vote for.
Sure.
They didn't vote for any of the solutions.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't vote for funding to hire more judges. They didn't hire more staff, more border patrol. None of that. They included more funding to put more people in jail.
Mm-hmm.
And then they cut funding for NGOs that were taking people that were immigrants, people that actually do get asylum.
Right.
They were helping those people get settled. They were nonprofits that were helping those people get settled. So they cut that funding by 6% so that they could create more desperate people
Right. So hoping that they'll commit a crime basically if they don't have enough food, or they can't get a job, or they're not, effectively trapped here and they can't get home. If they try, it's worse back home. So, yeah, absolutely. Especially the youngins is the idea that you drive the youngins nuts by ghettoizing them. And then you have, there was this thing, that they had an issue with some, what were called Indian agents back in the day, that would be the responsible party for interacting with resources to some smaller native reses and the U.S. government. And their job was because they weren't allowing these certain tribes to hunt elsewhere, was to provide them with food, right? That you would deliver a certain amount of food. They had a certain amount they could farm, and there was some buffalo and other stuff that would come through the area, and they were able to harvest those on their land, but they could not travel and follow the herds anymore. So they were provided with stuff. So some of the Indian agents realized that under certain law, if the natives rioted, that would be a breach of the treaty, and therefore you could take the land back. And this one particular one happened in Wisconsin and in other places. But what they would do is they would starve them, essentially. They would delay and delay and delay the food going in, right? And then they would deliver whiskey bottles full of sugar. So they would take it was like sweet tea. They would gack it up with fucking sugar, and they would just a little bit of food stuff and a lot of this shit, and everybody would drink it just for the caloric aspect of the fucking sugar. They just, and they would be drunk, and then they would be mad because they were being starved to death, and then they would riot, and then they would get shot, and then, Economo Walk,
I probably
Wisconsin is
shouldn't
born.
tell people this, but if you take your whiskey and you dump a shitload of sugar in it, it will continue to ferment, and
Yes.
the alcohol content will skyrocket.
And
that's why
it
they
might
did it.
even just fucking kill you.
Mhm.
Right. And
another one that just blows my mind. I love when people hear stories like this because they don't think about it. Like right now, coffee's expensive.
Mhm.
Coffee's expensive. It is. It's not a really cheap thing. Back then, it wasn't. A lot of people didn't drink coffee. They didn't. The reason they drank coffee out on the plains is because you were boiling the water, which killed. You didn't get as many infections and whatnot, and the coffee would add a little flavoring to it. But it was dirt cheap. It really was. It was cheaper. You could buy coffee for less than you could buy pinto beans. And these agents had contracts that were supposed to supply a certain number of beans,
right?
A certain weight of beans. So they would buy coffee beans and deliver coffee beans to these Indians instead of actual food they could eat.
Aren't fucking beans at all. They're called beans, but they ain't. They're fucking fucking whatever. They're seeds technically. They're pits of a cherry-like fruit. You'd be better off just dropping the entire coffee fruit to it. But that's absolutely. It was a way of any way they could do this. And by the way, this was not for the record the policy of the U.S. government at that time. It was not. These people were acting on behalf of settlers and people in the area. Some of them were working with people who are still aligned with the British government in Canada, who wanted to take some of the land and was still fighting with the U.S. over they would carve out a chunk of this. They were working with the French in some cases. The French had a great relationship with some native tribes and not others. So there was a bunch of stuff where these guys would get bought off to do this. If they got caught, they got hung, these guys. But you could see the revenuers, the people, the federal government guys coming from a long way off, so they could just, if they could hatch the plot and make it happen before anybody showed up to do anything about it. By the time anybody showed up, it was their word against nobody, because there was instead of
because more than not, if your family was starving, shit turned violent, or they left the res, or they, that was the whole point.
Right. Well, this is, again, similar situations where they're trying to do that inside the cities. The problem is the amount of resources available make that a near impossibility. And the NGOs, even if they're not getting enough money from the U.S. government, still have a bunch of secondary funding that will make them functional. They just don't have the growing funds to deal with a growing number. The thing is, though, the Biden administration like the Obama-Biden administration, is going through the immigrants that are here, adjudicating people who have actual asylum claims, and people who are just, what I would call roofing age men who are here for, economic migrants that don't have a real cause to not just seek a visa, which they could get because those jobs are necessary. They're just running across and working under the table. Those people get ejected. And so that those resources by those NGOs aren't used on those people. Those guys can get a visa, come up here and work. A green card, specifically. That's what green cards are for. Not roofing.
And how, just to remind people, this is not how migrants enter the country. This is not how illegal migrants enter the country. That's at Laredo.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 10,000 trucks lined up to cross. One of them is a truckload of migrants. One of them is. Two of them are. Mm-hmm. And they catch a ride up to Kansas City, or they catch a ride up to Chicago, or they catch a ride to San Antonio, hop off, catch I-10, go to Florida, like say, to work in the roofing business. They're not walking across the desert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by the way, can we just take a happy moment? Because again, these guys are going to fail, and because of the stuff they did pass, even if they only like the mean stuff, we're still going to be able to lower the number of crossings and all that kind of stuff at the border, that are illegal between now and the election to a measurable degree that's going to drive the fucking Republicans crazy. That's it. But can we just take for a moment and enjoy the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene just stormed out of the House and has mics all around her because they just passed the budget and she filed a motion to vacate Mike Johnson.
Do you really think that there's someone who can get 200?
Oh yeah, hold on. I have to use this in another browser, or you wouldn't be able to hear it. But $1.2 trillion, just basically the regular Biden budget. It's totally fine. It's nothing weird at all. The scale of our economy is such that that's it's not, there used to be people who freaked out about the word billion. Now trillion means the same thing. That's how shit works. I don't know why we must have this goddamn panic attack every fucking time. But hold on, let me do this real quick. Paste it here. See if I can do it. No.
I'm loving this budget that they passed. While you're looking that up, if you mind if I throw a little commentary out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Republicans got rolled. We got $300 million worth of ammo for Ukraine.
Yep.
We got, which is nowhere near what we wanted, but it, $300 million worth of ammo for Ukraine.
It doesn't include the defense supplemental.
Right.
So
right. This is just what's going through in this border. We got $1 billion for Head Start, $120 million for cancer research, $100 million for Alzheimer's research. And the Republicans got to hurt a few NGOs. They got a little poison pill in there that only the official U.S. flag can fly on an embassy flagpole. So they're going to make sure that no pride flag ever flies anywhere.
Well, the funny thing is that like Biden agreed to sign it or whatever on that, and they made that the Biden White House made that decision like yesterday to preemptively ditch the win for the Republicans. They're like, because that's the other thing too, is that that Republicans might think at some point, well, if they can fly the big queer flag, we could fly the Confederate flag because heritage, right? And so to nip that in the bud, just American flag. It's American embassy, just so people don't get confused about where they are. I mean, there's a lot of striped flags out there. It's okay. They know what we stand for. We don't need to fly the flag. People can have it in their offices, just to fly outside. It's pretty standard at any embassy. We don't have to fly a secondary one. It also, by the way, will cut into some embassies. By the way, there's special dispensation for the POW flag that the Biden administration made themselves, because the edict on it is that if it's nothing but the American flag, I'm like, oh, okay, so no POWs, you are not forgotten flag. Whoop. No, sorry, you already passed it, fuckwad. He'll write an executive order making it okay. In some cases. And then they win that issue and the Republicans have to dance around. It's fucking hilarious. Like, yeah.
Biden just took them to the woodshed. He
Oh,
really
absolutely.
did, because they did it to themselves. They took a
Right.
2-week vacation, didn't work on the budget. So if the budget, it's still got to go through the Senate.
Yeah.
Still got to go through the Senate this afternoon. And you, of course, you've got Rand Paul and Mike Lee and all, you know, the Russia-loving Ron Johnson are all vowing to use every parliamentary tactic available to kill this, to slow it down. So at 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning, the government shuts down. If it's not signed by Biden by 12:01 a.m. tomorrow morning, the government shuts down. And they're literally trying to force that to happen, and don't understand that they're holding the knife to their own throat.
Yeah.
Because they just took a 2-week vacation.
Yeah.
And they've done nothing for the last year.
Yeah. I gotta say, I kind of love it. I think it's like, you know, they are the chaos party right now. They don't have a functioning position on anything. They are, even their pro-life shit is killing moms and making them carry, like everybody, like real thinking, thoughtful human beings are going, holy shit, why are more women dying of ectopic pregnancies? Or why are there more stillborn children? Why is the infant mortality rate going up statistically in the United States? I'll tell you why. Because women are being forced to give birth to babies that have no chance of surviving outside the womb and watching it suffer and die right in front of them because of Republicans. And so that infant mortality in the United States on a practical nature has not changed at all. As a matter of fact, it's improved. As we increase support for, women in poverty, for example, and women of color getting more prenatal care, those women are able to carry a healthy baby to term more often. And that's a good thing. That's what we should do. If anybody who's really pro-life, it would want more of that. But what the Republicans want is more women carrying unviable fetuses to term, and that's logged as a fetus, as a baby that died, as an infant that died. It's logged not as an ectopic pregnancy or an inviable fetus that was expelled from the woman's body, that had no brain waves, was not alive. It's, once it's, the umbilical cord is cut, it is effectively an organ of the mother in that regard. And they make her watch it die. And then they list it as a dead baby, as a dead living child that died in childbirth. And the cruelty of that is, it may be lost on them, but for fuck's sake, like, it's not lost on the majority of Americans, and it certainly isn't lost on the majority of women, as they will find out this fall.
Well, Hal, just to, kudos to you, my brother. What we do for a living. This is not the 60s. This is not the 70s where you could get away with this bullshit.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. You've got folks like you that will sit here and explain to people, this is what's going on. They don't have to rely on the 3 networks, that are going to steak dinners with the Republican donors and crap like that, to get their version of what's going on. They actually have somebody like you sitting here explaining. Actually, fetal mortality rates are getting better, except for the fact that fetuses that used to not be born because we would protect the mother's life and health are now being born. And we're having these tragedies of forcing young mothers to sit there and watch a baby that was born with no brain.
Yeah. Or its heart outside its body, or with no lungs, or that was, it literally had to they had to do a C-section, surgically remove it from her uterus wall to give a C-section to it instead of just aborting it. They have to cut her open now. She has now a permanent surgical scar, and she has opened the inside of her body up to the outside air in a surgical way, which is, one of the ways anybody who's had surgery knows that the fewer you can have in your life, the better. Right? I mean, that's what got James Garner, for the record, is he kept trying to get his goddamn shoulder and his back fixed. And if he'd just left well enough alone with the pain, he would have lived probably 10 more years. But that's again, they don't give a fuck. This is again, the optics of this are so gross. It's and it's heartbreaking that these women have to go through this shit. like I remember the birth of my son and the joy that I felt of holding him in my arms. The first thing I said to him was "Hello, Brown Eyes," and then the other thing is, and the nurses didn't hear me say that. They didn't hear that the first thing I said to him was that because I did it so close. And so I leaned back because I knew they hadn't heard what my first words were. And I went, okay, the original members of KISS are Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and they were like, "Oh my God!" Like, it was at his birth. So, but I like that's just a regular birth of that, of a healthy child that you know is going to be okay for the most part, unless something extraordinary happens. You're going to be all right. Your heart is in your throat. Your nerves are on edge. You're worried not just for the mom, but for your baby, and that they come out okay, that nothing happens during the process that could harm them for the rest of their lives, that they're totally healthy up to that point. And there's so much riding on it. And if anybody who's been through that, in good conscience, force a young mother or a mother who's had 2 kids already and would like to have more to go through this process and suffer through it. There's just like, it's grotesque. I like, ooh.
It is.
So, on a lighter note, can we watch Marjorie Taylor Greene suffer for a moment? Because this is her walking out. She's just filed a motion to oust Speaker Johnson.
Now let's listen in.
Started out as with rules and promises to the American people that we would bring regular order back to Congress. Speaker Johnson has betrayed.
Yeah, that's what you've done.
Betrayed that by passing 3 CRs and then forcing us to pass or to vote on a 2-part omnibus. The second one being today. He also only gave us, I don't even know how, we had 1 day basically to read 1,012 pages, breaking the 72-hour rule.
No, you didn't. You only have to read the changes, motherfucker. Get your staff to run it through a PDF thing and select all text added since the last one.
And Hal, she actually has a legitimate beef there, but it's their own damn fault.
Right.
That didn't used to be a rule. That 72-hour rule she's talking about got put in place so that people like her could have 72 hours to run to Fox News and run to all the right-wing media spheres and shit all over their own bills.
Right.
And this is their own creation. That didn't, Hal, you nailed it. These Marjorie Taylor Greene is not reading this. She has staff.
Right.
She has staff that are specifically hired to deal with numbers, that are reading it, that know what's in it, and then they tell her the talking points. That's it. She doesn't read this bill.
Well, that's what committees are fucking for too. Yeah.
And I love that this whole 72-hour rule, another one of their own abominations, their own Frankenstein rules, is coming back to torch them, to light them on fire. I love it.
Yeah. So let's see.
This is a betrayal of the American people. This is a betrayal of Republican voters. And the bill that we were forced to vote on.
Boo-hoo! That passed with 101 Republicans voting for it. More than half your caucus at this point, or just under, I think. They're losing people by the day.
Forced Republicans to choose between funding to pay our soldiers, and in doing so, funding late-term abortion. This bill was basically a dream and a wish list for Democrats. And
please, yes, you're right. This will be an ad for the capability of the Biden administration. Just saying, for all you uncommitteds out there.
For the White House, it was completely led by Chuck Schumer, not our Republican Speaker of the House, not our conference, and we weren't even allowed to put amendments to the floor to have a chance to make changes to the bill.
Yeah, you did. That's what committee is for. It's a budget, motherfucker, not a law. You have to, there's different order for this because laws can take for fucking ever to pass, right? Texas Paul, you can, some of them, that I'm just a bill, yes, I'm only a bill thing about the school bus. Remember what that was about? That was about school buses stopping at railway crossings. They didn't show you the previous to it where local areas had to try to pass these, but they wanted it nationwide, but they couldn't get it passed for a few years. And school buses kept getting hit by fucking trains. That would have fucked up the cartoon, right? Yeah. There was I've told this before, but in a stand-up bit that I had, if you ever want to go see my Alcatraz special. But in Peaks Mill, in the Elkhorn Creek, up from my house in Peaks Mill, there was a bus that was stuck in the creek like a fucking arrow shot from God's quiver, because it had driven off Old Peaks Mill Road because there was no guide rail on it. They had one, but it was like, one of those short guardrails that was just for vehicles, like little cars. And it fucking flew off the side. Everybody died. And it fucking stuck in the water, and they just fucking left it there. And it was like this weird, like, leaning tower of Pisa sculpture of to memorialize the death in Elkhorn Creek for a very long time. They eventually came and hauled it out because it was just, everybody was very, at our church, there was it was a regular talking point at Peaks Mill Christian Church. They're like, y'all, look, we're all sad, but we got headstones for these kids. We don't need some fucked up weird, like, because kids like Hal Sparks and his friend Kurt Troutwine and Bernard Payton and Timmy Tracy and all them are going to go fucking play around in that, and they're going to get tetanus. And while all of you are wishing they'd get lockjaw, there's worse problems to deal with. And right, and that law took a while to pass because you could add amendments to it. People tried to put poison pills in it. People tried to add shit onto it that had nothing to do with it, which happens all the time. But a budget's got to fucking pass. So of course the amendment procedure is different, dumb fuck.
I filed the motion to vacate today, but it's more of a warning and a pink
Yeah, it's more of a warning. It's not a real motion to vacate.
slip. I respect our conference. I paid all my dues to my conference. I'm a member in good standing, and I do not wish to inflict pain on our conference and to throw the house in chaos.
I'm sorry. Who are you, and what have you done with Marjorie Taylor Greene then? Because
she's saying that she's filed to vacate the chair, but she didn't really file to vacate the chair. I mean,
right.
What the hell is this? I mean, you either did it or you didn't. Right. I mean,
she didn't. Well, I did it, but I don't mean it.
But this is basically a warning, and it's time for us to go through the process, take our time, and find a new Speaker of the House that will stand with Republicans and our Republican majority instead of standing with the Democrats.
So you did mean it.
That's a warning.
So you did mean
if
it.
It's a warning. If it's a warning, does that mean that you're not going to go through and force this vote?
No, I will. I'm just
There's
not.
nothing that can.
It's a warning to get rid of him, but I'm not really gonna get rid of him, and we don't have the votes to do it, and like by even close to the margins of McCarthy. So it's more of like an impotent action than a warning. I gotta say, man, I fucking love it. I love it. I like it.
I'm tired of this WWE bullshit, though, with these people. I mean, running a government, making the sausage isn't pretty. It's boring.
Yes.
It's not fun to watch. It's not entertaining, but you got to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to sit down with everybody's staff and hammer out these bills, and you've got to do the work, man. And what did they do? They went on vacation for 2 weeks, and then they came back. And the reason that she's saying that there weren't amendments offered and all this other crap is because they had to go through the emergency process of skipping committee and bringing it straight to the floor because they're out of time. They're out of time because they didn't do their job.
Yeah. It's such like, and the thing is, it would be one thing. It was like, you and I enjoy the blood sport of politics, as it were, the back and forth and stuff. We're not afraid of it. And we're fine to, work within that part of it. But I prefer it when it actually is consequential and there's kind of an equal intellectual fight between me and the other person. It seldom happens, I understand. But in this particular case, it's just so fucking dumb. It's almost like I feel bad, like I'm not really, like it's easy to point out, like I can go through a budget and I can tell you where the substrata of payments that go out to certain organizations may better solve the problem or work against the problem. And that interests me a lot. I like that part of it. But this is just fucking crayons and hammers, just like derp, derp. And while I like dunking on it, it's not work.
Yeah. And I tell you, man, it pisses me off. It
Yeah.
really does make me angry because this is not the stuff that we normally, before Fox News came along. I'm old enough to remember the world before Fox News.
Mhm.
Before Fox News came along, these old boys would be out somewhere having dinner.
Yep.
They would, hey, let's take a break and head down to the caucus room and have a steak. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
they would hammer this shit out.
Yeah.
And get it done. And now this WWE faux outrage, pretend to be pissed off about everything, get the morons involved strictly for the Republican Party.
Mm-hmm.
This is strictly this doesn't apply to Democrats. We're not out there, chasing the short bus saying, hey, come vote for us. That's the Republican Party.
Right.
We didn't used to have this. It didn't used to operate this way. We need to get back.
Yeah, I guess here's the aspect of it. We have transferred this. I would call this the reality TV drift. That we have transferred the way we used to follow around, like, huge celebrities to even moderate celebrities and what I would call the reality TV folks, non-celebrities. I call those folks awareities. You don't really celebrate that they exist. You're just aware the Real Housewives of wherever are around, or the Kardashians, but you're not celebrating them the way you're like, I love that person's music. I love that person's movies. That's what celebrity is, right? Whereas these assholes, you're just like, oh yeah, they're everywhere. I know that, whatever. And we have transferred that, DC used to be Hollywood for ugly people. That was the idea, is that they would try to, get their face in front of a camera and be equal to the fame that we give to celebrities. Now reality TV drift has created this kind of substructure of the also rans and never were's have their own reality TV zone of popularity, right? That they're not, the Obamas of the world that are the big time celebrities. In the world of this, where Obama is in the I don't know what's the Cary Grant, Sidney Poitier world, right, of fame in terms of worldwide fame, because he was president of the United States and he was great at it, or
people
even Joe
in
Biden.
Moldova know who.
Yes,
by
exactly.
sight who Barack Obama is.
That's right. They're the big time celebrity part of it, but there's a substructure of the Marjorie Taylor Greens, which are like they're the Real Housewives of Washington D.C. in a lot of ways. Like this crowd of like, fuck that guy, and they don't produce anything or do anything. They don't make movies. They don't, it's like reality show people. They don't make movies and albums worth a fuck if they do it all, right? They don't do anything else that benefits any of us. They're just there to be there. And their entire fucking Freedom Caucus is the reality show caucus. They're just there to be there. Yeah, the Duck Dynasty of like, is anybody's life affected except when these dickheads show up at political events and help raise money for psychopaths? Is your life changed by the material existence of Duck Dynasty? Or for that matter, World's Deadliest Catch, or any of the Real Housewives, or the fucking Bachelor, or any of that shit. But it's fodder.
Hal, it's like you're talking about. We know that there are things that go on in Congress, renaming buildings, working on parks, working on there are a million bills that passed that no one will ever want to read or know anything about. It's just shuffling paperwork, but it has to be done because it's part of the government and the bills need to be passed. This last Congress passed 30 bills.
Right.
30. And what, 3 of them were renaming buildings.
Right. Well, yeah,
you can't run a government that way. And I swear to God, I think that's the point. Mm-hmm. I swear to God that these are a bunch of traitor, Russia-loving bastards that have figured out a way to cut the nuts off our government. Mm-hmm. It's just the stuff that is supposed to happen behind the scenes.
Right.
That's not sexy. That's not the Freedom Caucus. That's not any of the just work, people. The $174,000 a year was to pay for a job. This was your job.
Right.
You showed up. And the fact that they just won't do the basic shit of keeping the lights on just enrages me.
Right.
I mean, it's like.
By the way, only 11 more Republicans voted against the budget today than voted for it. 101 voted for it, 112 voted against it. Currently, if by my count on here or whatever. So 112 voted against the budget, and the rest of them voted for it. And it's like this many. There's like a dozen of these dumb fucks make the tipping point, and half of it, I would say maybe 2/3, from the Marjorie Taylor Greens to the Harriet Hagmans and that crowd and whatever the fuck, that all of those folks believe in voting against the budget because, all the things you're saying about they haven't passed anything, that's a feature, not a bug to those guys, right? They want the government shut down. They don't want programs to be run. They don't want the beneficial parts of government because they run on hating government. It's like, again, I don't know who the fuck hires a babysitter who hates kids, but somehow these motherfuckers get elected to hate the government they're running to work in. Stay the fuck home and show everybody how it's done in private, right? Start your own goddamn business and flex your muscles as an intellect. It's so fucking weird. But by the way, Texas Paul, I want to say you're the one, I Harriet Hagman, and you are the one person. I never miss a show. I hate you. You're a communist. You're trying to work with China. But I gotta say, you see, you that big hat, and you big sexy, it drives you a little bit crazy. Harriet, beat it, for fuck's sake. I just wanted to say hi. Sorry. Okay. Anyways, Harriet, she's a true believer. I would say though, and I want to would you agree that probably 1/3 of the guys who voted against it actually want the would under normal circumstances vote for it, but they're scared shitless of being primaried or killed, quite frankly, because there's fucking crazy ass maggots out there.
Yeah, you lie to your people, and they have unreasonable expectations. They think this is the way it's supposed to operate, and it's not. It's not even close. It's just another one that just lights me on fire. Goldman Sachs came out and did an interview with Fox Business and said, curing people is a bad business model. That's just a bad business model. Right. So we're looking at our investments are looking more towards treatment than cures. And of course the flip side of that is killing people is a bad business model also. But that's the kind of thing that we get
injuring them
in government. Yeah.
I mean, the Republicans
if
we kill our voters, we're fucked. If we kill our voters, we're fucked. But if we injure them and blame it on somebody else, every time they stand up and their knee goes bad, they're going to go, oh, fucking Democrats. That's honestly, you could look at how they undermined the VA before the VA Choice Act that Obama fucking signed in 2014. That brings up a point too, is that that used to be the thought about quote unquote big pharma. We always heard that about big pharma. And by the way, there's no such thing as big pharma or big tech or anything. There are big tech companies. There are big pharmaceutical companies. There are also small tech companies and small pharmaceutical companies that could at any point take over any of the others. It's an innovation area in the world, and it's ever changing. So the idea that fucking these giant companies get together and smoke cigars together and work against it is just kind of cartoonish. It's as far as the understanding. But I will say this: sometimes they act not in concert, but their needs are so aligned that everything they do, they might as well be working together, right? They might as well, because they're all shooting for the same thing. Now, in big pharma, for example, I would argue that any company that, if the rest of them are like, we're not going to cure cancer, we just want to keep everybody buying our long-term cancer drugs. And one of them goes, you know what? Fuck it. We don't want to do that. We're going to cure cancer, and then everybody's going to buy our treatment drugs. How about that? Fuck you guys. That's what they're always fighting against. But the arms industry, for all this talk about the military-industrial complex, and now you're hearing it from the right. Yeah, they talk about it all the time now, right? We've heard this, even them, they're throwing around like a bunch of fucking hippies in 1972, right? Military-industrial complexes, because forever wars, even though Ukraine's not our war and neither is Israel, it's happening elsewhere. We're just aiding, in one case, both sides in terms of tacit support and material support, and the other in terms of arms. It never occurred to them that gun manufacturers, to get you to buy more guns, want you to be afraid of the amount of guns that are on the street. And so there's a sub-industry that they engage in where they take all the guns that don't pass inspection, that go to gun shops, and they're a little bit shitty, and some guys don't mind fixing themselves, and dump them in on the black market, so that there's all these floating fucking guns out there that people pop for parts and move around. And so everybody who's got a gun for security keeps hearing about these fuckers who've got guns everywhere, because the same guys that are selling them guns are dumping guns to make you afraid, so you'll buy another gun. That's the hi. Excuse me, my girlfriend just walked by into the room and wants to say hi to Texas Paul. There's Texas Paul.
I wish mine would come by and bring me some coffee. My wife.
All right.
I don't have a girlfriend. But
yes, Summer sometimes brings me coffee, but I think she's under the impression that I've had too much this morning, and I haven't had any. Anyways, you know, it's weird to me that they warn us about big pharma, big tech, big government, but none of them are like, or even the military-industrial complex, which is not a fucking thing. Like, I'm sorry, it's a crafted term. It's bullshit. It's like censorship industrial complex from fucking Matt Taibbi. It's a cartoon. But the gun companies definitely want you to buy a gun, and the only reason you're going to buy a gun is if it's fun to play around with, or you're scared shitless, or both.
Or you're scared.
Right. And those two things are their main, that's their marketing scheme. Crime and look how cool this thing is. Right. That's it.
I rolled a guy today, man. I rolled a guy on Threads, or I can remember it's X-Chan or Threads or whatever. Puts out he's sitting on his front porch. Is it time to go yet? And he's sitting there with his AR-15, and it's like, go where, dude? Do what? You're not going to do shit.
Right.
You know, you're not going to do shit. You're just a loudmouth, and you're the reasons, by the way, we're going to lose our right to guns. You know, you.
Irresponsible
Mr. Second
people
Amendment guy,
are why we all lose the privilege. Right.
Yeah, because, you know, I don't give a shit, Hal, if you own a freaking Abrams tank. If you want to drive it around out in the desert and you know, Arizona or Nevada or whatever, do your thing. I don't give a shit. As long as you keep your mouth shut about, is it time to attack the government?
The tyrannical government, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, man. It's the exact same thing. It's they foment this problem. They talk about armed cartels. Well, who the hell armed them?
Right.
We did.
Mm-hmm.
We did. They talk about Chicago and the gun violence in Chicago. Well, those guns came out of Indiana. Those guns came out of Minnesota. Those guns came out of Wisconsin. Your hillbilly asses,
which you should be
are supplying.
Right.
Yeah, are supplying the arms there, but you're right. You're right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's bullshit, man.
Yeah, it's and again the sort of bizarre like we got the founding fathers want us to fight against a tyrannical government. Sorry. Yes. Yes, they're well, yes. One moment, please. They're on my nightstand. Yeah.
While Hal's gone.
Sorry, my
I was going to take over the show, man.
That's all right. We got to go. But I will say this: that they're all like, we're going to fight a tyrannical government. Cool. You got all these guns. Fly to Ukraine, motherfucker. They need all the help they can get. The Russians are exactly what you're talking about. That's exactly what you're talking about, asshole. So, and yet, no. What they mean is they want to kill our cops and our soldiers in some sort of fantasy end of times, I don't know, Left Behind novel bullshit idea. You know what I mean? That's going to happen and never does. And then they get frustrated and you wonder why they get drunk and shoot up their fucking living room. It's because they've been waiting for the change, right? And it doesn't come. Like the big great day of the rope or whatever the fuck they're expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You know, they just sit there and they tell each other, to circle back to what we were talking about, they sit there and they tell each other these fantasies about what our government's supposed to was on X Chan. Is it go time yet? You know, you sit there with his AR-50. I'm looking at it right now. You know, they sit there and they tell each other these fantasies. And, I just responded, best economy in the world, lowest crime rate in modern American history. And Haas here can't make it. What up?
Right. Maybe you suck. And again, isn't it like, aren't these the same people who are like, the government doesn't make me successful, I make me successful? Well, motherfucker, they're not holding you back. They aren't. They just aren't. I don't know what the fuck kind of zoning you're running up against when you're trying to do whatever the fuck you're trying to do, but it ain't government that's stopping you. It might be your credit. It might be your relationships. It might be the fact that you're an asshole, but it isn't like a law or a regulation that's stopping you from being successful. And it's weird how when Trump's in, you just suddenly feel more successful, but you have less money in your pocket. It's so odd. We went over a little bit, but Texas Paul was nice enough to jump in because Tara wasn't available. RealTexasPaul.com, and of course, you got to watch his live streams and his shows and like his videos and share them out. Same is true of our dear friend Boston Brian. Before we get to that, I want to for all the uncommitteds out there, I think Paul and I both have a message for you. Mine being that Biden just canceled another $6 billion in student loans. The total is now $143.6 billion in canceled or forgiven student loans without Congress and without you motherfuckers getting people elected that would back him to pass a bill that would go even further. So thanks for nothing.
Yep.
And Tex Paul, any last thoughts?
Get your ass out and vote, because if you aren't voting, you're really voting for Trump. Mm-hmm. So, and this one's not academic, folks. This one isn't a battle of ideas against our ideas versus their ideas. This is you get another election after this or you don't.
Right.
It's really that simple. Vote this Democrat or lose your country.
Authoritarianism. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah. So appreciate it, brother, and thank you for jumping in. And Tara's got she's under the weather, so hopefully she'll be back with us on Monday, perhaps. But we're sending love and soup to her. I have no doubt. Everybody goes through it. I think we all go through a shed every couple of years. That's really not a flu. It's just us sloughing off bad cells. But she's been under a bunch of stress over the last little bit, and that'll get you. I know it very well. We all do. So anyways, we send our love to her, and thanks so much, Texas Paul. Always a pleasure. Big fan of your work. And
always fun to talk to you, Al. Always fun to talk to you. You need to let me know when you're going to have another show too, man. I would love to get there. We need to get a bunch of sparklers there, a bunch of Texas Paul potheads, and have a big old, because you put on a hell of a show, my brother. You put on a hell of a show. You really do.
Thank you very much.
I loved it, man. And I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah.
I know you were running along. I'm sorry, but I got to say this. From your speaking voice, I would have never guessed about your singing voice. I was just jaw wide open.
Wow.
I was like, what the hell? Because your speaking voice and your singing voice are very different.
Right.
I was like, what the hell is this coming from? And Mrs. Texas Paul just immediately, when you broke out in the first song, man, and you grabbed the mic and just head went back and you really just let it go. Mrs. Texas Paul turned around and looked at me. Did you know he could do that? I'm like, hell no, I didn't know he could do that.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm blushing. You can tell. Thank you very much. That's very sweet. And I feel like my feeling is I don't leave the house unless I'm going to better somebody's day. And I certainly don't step out on stage unless I'm going to better the audience's day. And so, it's a lot of, that's the only pressure I feel in a major way in my performance life is that part of it. And it's really nice to hear how it's received. So I can't thank you enough. And we'll do it again very, very soon. It's going to happen. Texas loves Nerd Halen and we love Texas. It's an ironic and curious relationship that I'm 100% for. So thanks, brother.
Good to see you.
All right. Cheers. Ladies and gentlemen, Texas Paul. Give it up for him. Texas Paul. Yeah. Texas Paul. All right. Texas Paul. Woo! And you guys, I will see later this afternoon. I'm only slightly blushing because I actually got some sun, so I'm a little pink to start with. So just saying. Cut me some slack. Just, all right. We went long. All right. Love you. Thank you, guys. Hit that like on the way out, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye. I gotta go. I gotta go fix a flat tire.